Hi there, I'm Jonathan Fields, and this is Good Life Project. So my guest today is Alex Jamieson. Alex is a healthy food chef, a consultant, an author, has a really fascinating history in film. You guys may recognize her as we sort of explore the conversation a little bit. So awesome to be hanging out with you today.
Thank you. It's so fun to be here with you.
So we're hanging out, and any second now there may be a ding because we have been cooking.
Yeah.
Some really delicious gluten-free. Are they vegan also?
They're vegan, they're gluten-free, they're paleo-friendly.
Scones. Right.
It's amazing.
Which I'm very excited to try. So right now you're a chef, you're an author, you are a consultant, you speak publicly, you do a lot of different things. But you kind of burst onto the public's awareness going on about 10 years ago in a very different way. So take me back and share that a little bit.
So about 11 or 12 years ago, I was dating this guy named Morgan, and I was in culinary school and I was training to become a health counselor. It was at the very beginning of my career. Okay. And we talked about food and health all the time because I was obsessed with quinoa, which I had just discovered, and making kale for him, which he had never eaten. And we were on his mom's couch on Thanksgiving 2002, and we saw this news story about these girls who were suing McDonald's for their health problems. Right. And he said, that's crazy. You can't sue a food company. You buy the food. You go in there. You ask for it. And we talked. I said, well, look at the way they market to kids and how the fast food culture has evolved. So he said, well, what if I ate nothing but McDonald's for a month? What would happen? And it was like, light bulb moment. So he literally ran to the phone and started setting up, let's get a film guy in here. My friend can edit. You know, he had a small production company at the time, but had never made a feature-length documentary before. And that became Super Size Me.
But so hold on a second though. You're like totally down the road of healthy eating and stuff like this. And he's like, and I guess you're both saying, okay, well, this would be an interesting experiment for 30 days. Either of you freaked out about the possibility of what might happen?
I told him, no, please don't do this. It was a bad idea. Don't do it. And he had 3 doctors and a nutritionist following his progress over the course of the film. And they all said, you'll be okay. You might put on a few pounds. Because at that point, there wasn't any obvious example of somebody really hurting themselves with food. And they were all floored at how sick he got in that month.
So this turned into, the name of the film was?
Super Size Me.
Right, which became this massive phenomenon. Went on to be an award-winning film, like mass exposure. You guys got a lot of exposure from it. And opened a lot of people's eyes to the way what you put into your mouth can really affect not just your weight, which I think was really surprising because there's some serious weight gain in a short amount of time, but also your basic markers for disease.
Yeah, his cholesterol went up 60 points in a month. And he was moody. He was unhappy. He was depressed. He was, his libido was shot. So it was a really great way to show people how their food affects the entire spectrum of illness, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical. And, luckily he started in such a healthy place that we were able to reverse the effects pretty quickly.
I guess, and that was sort of like what I was really curious about, because that's the part that's not in the film. So you kind of left wondering, okay, well, what now? Does this take 6 months to get back? Does this take a year to get back? Or can you return pretty quickly if you change your habits and sort of like dive back into eating and living a different way?
Right, and with him we did. I put him on a plant-based whole foods diet, and in 2 months, everything went back to normal. He really healed himself with food, which was a great example, again, of what you can do with food. You can make yourself sick, you can make yourself well. And a lot of people have used that movie as a great excuse to experiment and explore what's possible for them. It really inspired a lot of people to change their diet, to take the junk out, to really start cooking their own food from scratch, and change the way they feel and change their body's chemistry.
Yeah. So this movie took you from being 2 people hanging out on your mom's couch to massive spotlight and massive limelight and a huge amount of attention on a personal level, because you're a pretty quiet person. I'm curious, how do you handle that? I mean, was it jarring to you, or are you like, yay, limelight?
It was both. I was excited because I was just starting my career. You know, I had changed my own health with food, and I was so excited to have the opportunity to talk with people about it. And I was just starting my own health coaching practice. So what a great opportunity. You know, people ask me, how do you have a successful coaching practice? I'm like, have somebody make an Oscar-nominated documentary about what you do. But it's really scary to get up in front of hundreds and thousands of people, you know, go on Oprah and be on stage talking about your truth and your life. I mean, it can be a little nerve-wracking.
Right.
But I was there with him, and, you know, we were in a relationship for many years, and we were very comfortable with each other. So that was helpful, to be there with your partner.
Yeah. And I guess, which leads to the other thing, which is, I'm so curious, when you have, and I guess this has been such a huge phenomenon these days, you know, in the last couple of years, we now see all these reality shows where you're basically like following around couples as they're about to get married or shortly after they're married, very often celebrity couples.
Yeah.
And I often wonder, you know, like, how do you behave differently when you know you're being filmed? But then B, also just, how does that completely change the potential future of the relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we ended up making another TV show called 30 Days after Super Size Me, which I was in a couple of episodes with him. You know, we went and lived on minimum wage for a month, and it was really a reality show that explored social issues in the way that Super Size Me did. And it's hard on the relationship. Not only are you going through a challenging experiment for a month, but, you know, you have to get up at 4:30 because the cameras are coming over, and it's just very unrealistic environment in which to communicate and be intimate with somebody. And, you know, I like hamming it up a little bit, and Morgan was a real joker, and we would have fun, but that's not real intimate connection. So that can take over a relationship for sure.
Yeah.
And I can't say how things would have turned out any differently, but it was challenging.
Right. Yeah, which is so interesting, right? Because it seems like increasingly these days, one of the big values, the things that a lot of people, especially younger in life, strive for is fame for the sake of fame.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times it's become so glorified that we don't really think, how's that really affecting my life? You know, you see, oh, well, maybe I'll get attention, I'll get all this other stuff, but how does it change you inside? How does it change the way you relate to people? I wonder, I see so much culture built around the quest for fame these days that, you know, it's interesting to be able to talk to you and sort of like see how you've come full circle, and how it's affected you and how you've changed things, and then how you're sort of like, in a way, rebuilding fame in a different way, you know, over the last few years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. There were times when we were still married, when we'd be out and with our son, and people would come up to us on the street, and it was always a positive comment or like a happy exchange. But at the same time, you realize that people are watching, people are looking at you, and it can be hard to let your guard down and just enjoy your life and be yourself in that way on a regular basis.
Yeah. You know, and the flip side is, it's good for business.
Right.
So there's this delicate balancing that goes on the whole time. It's like, you don't want it, you know, you want to have a personal life, you want it, but because I do this dance all the time, and I'm like just so low level, but even, you know, like in this tiny, tiny world that I exist in, if I'm known if I go somewhere, I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
And which doesn't mean that I hate people. It doesn't mean I don't like to be around people. It means I'm very selectively social. I like to be around small groups. And even when I speak, I'm great. I love being on stage. Put me on stage in front of thousands of people, I'm totally fine. But the moment I'm off stage, I don't want to be around anybody. I just want to go for a walk alone somewhere.
Yeah.
And so there's a dance that I do, and I imagine you do the same thing, where I do it because it's fun while I'm doing it, and because I get to have an impact on people, and because it's good for business.
Yeah.
You know, it gives me more reach. But at the same time, you know, there's a part of it that empties me out. So I'm constantly trying to balance out, like, how public am I and in what ways? And then really making sure that there's time to refuel.
Yeah, it is. It's a balance, and as you say, being on stage, I feel kind of like an omnivert in a way, where sometimes I love it, and sometimes being on somebody's show or going out and creating something in full view is so exciting, and that's all I want to do. And then I got to go to my cave for weeks afterwards, and it can be challenging as a parent too, to have a consistent home life.
Yeah. And that's got to be really interesting too, because there is value in being a very public person, but once you're a parent, it changes the equation dramatically. If you're the type of parent that doesn't necessarily want the limelight on your kid.
Yeah.
And some parents do, and there's no judgment there if you do, but if you're not, if you'd rather just keep your kid completely quiet and away from it. I was in Boulder last summer with my daughter, and I ended up having this cameo in like this indie documentary last year. And it was a tiny little thing, but we're in Boulder and I'm on checkout line, and the cashier looks at me and she's like, "I know you." And my daughter's like, "Really?" And it turns out she had watched the documentary. Wow. But I think about, people coming up to me or approaching me and sort of like the relationship and the way exposing a kid to sort of like a lot of spotlight that sort of like bounces off of you onto them. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's good or bad, but I just think about what the effect is of that, and what the effect that we make as parents about how public we are can have on our kids.
Yeah, I don't know what the effect is either.
No.
And, my son is 6 now, and he has seen me on TV, and he's seen his dad on TV. And he tells people, "Hey, have you seen my dad's movies?"
Right.
And I don't even know that he knows what that means in some ways, but he's just excited to have a way to connect with people about who he is and what his family is about. So, we talk about it sometimes, and just that people have different kinds of lives.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that was kind of where you burst onto the scene. And that was, like 10, 12 years ago, I guess the whole beginning of the process now. Zooming the lens forward to what we're doing right now and to what you're doing right now. First, we did a little bit of baking before this. So I think it's probably a good idea to do a little bit of sampling so we can actually see what you're doing right now.
We should sample it.
You want to grab the scones?
Okay, I'll go get it.
Okay. So what do we have here?
So these are the scones that we made earlier. They are orange hazelnut scones and they're made with almond and coconut flour.
So good.
Yeah. They're really delicious. They're moist and really flavorful. So you want to try some?
If I have to.
Yeah, come on, dive in.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. No, as a host,
I know.
I'm not supposed to be talking with my mouth full, but those are really good. Those are awesome. And so easy to make, and healthy, and gluten-free, and pretty much paleo approved. Really good stuff. So those are absolutely fabulous, and I love that it's so fast and easy to make, and it's delicious. And this is a lot of what you do now. You cook like this, you teach people how to cook like this. So zoom the lens forward and tell me what your life is like right now.
So I love to get people excited about eating real food, and I love helping people figure out which type of real food works best for them. And that it can be easy, and it can support them in how they want to feel and how they want to look, and that they can have a really good relationship with food.
So what are the biggest challenges to that these days?
The biggest challenges, I think, are our enculturation around food, how we grew up with food, and our cravings, and our idea that it's hard to eat well and to eat healthfully. I think a lot of people are laboring under the false idea that it takes a lot of time and it's really hard to eat good food, and that they're not going to like it.
So how do you fix that? Because I guess there's a bigger issue also, which is one of the big things that I hear all the time is, yes, it's hard takes more time, but also money. Like so many people have come to me and they're like, hey, I'd love to eat healthier. I'd love to eat a lot of fishes and like, grass-fed meats if you're, a meat eater, and organic vegetables, but it costs so much more. In your experience, is that valid?
It depends.
Yeah.
And, I was vegan for a long time. And one of the great things about plant-based foods is that they can be really cheap and the best quality. Like you can buy organic brown rice and organic black beans, and that costs maybe $1 a pound. You can get a lot of meals out of that.
Right.
So just by learning how to cook really simple whole foods, and I don't mean foods from Whole Foods, but unrefined foods from scratch. Learning how to cook some basic simple things like big pots of 3-bean chili, or split pea soup, or there's a lot of ways to get really hearty meals made quickly and cheaply that you can base most of your diet around and not have to make it fancy gourmet, and it doesn't have to be really expensive grass-fed beef. Maybe you have that a couple times a week or once a week. So you can find a middle ground. You can make it easy and cheap.
Yeah. So you just mentioned that you were vegan for a long time. Not vegan anymore?
Not vegan anymore. Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
So when I was 25, my health came to a real crisis point, and I completely changed my diet, and that healed me.
What was the crisis?
So I was about 20 pounds overweight, but that wasn't the issue. I was having migraine headaches several days a week, if not every day. I had a lot of pain in my body, in my back and in my knee, and I was just depressed and getting more depressed because I was never awake. I was always exhausted. And the constant pain is just really, really challenging for anybody to deal with.
Yeah.
And luckily I found a second doctor. The first doctor I went to wanted to give me a bunch of prescriptions. And I knew, having the healthy upbringing that I did, I knew that there was something else going on. Like that was just going to cover up the symptoms. So I went to another doctor.
So coming from such a healthy upbringing, at this point when you have all the symptoms,
Yeah.
were you still eating the way that you ate when you were a kid?
No, I was a complete sugar fiend for about 15 years. And I ate sugar all day long, lots of caffeine, and loved candy. I rarely ate fresh vegetables from college onward. So the second doctor I went to asked me what I was eating. And when I told him, he was like, oh, no wonder you're sick. You have to change what you're eating. And I took out everything, all the animal products, all the sugar, all the refined foods, just got really, really simple, really whole foods. And it was really hard at first because
I bet.
I didn't know what I was doing. There weren't health food stores every few blocks like there are now. And I didn't know anybody who ate that way. But it worked.
Wait, were you in Portland still then?
No, I lived here in New York City.
Oh, okay, so I'm thinking in Portland, like, everybody eats that way.
Yeah.
But in New York City, it's different now.
It is, and I didn't know any vegans at the time, but I read a book about it, and I said, oh, that sounds great, I'll do that, and it worked. So I healed my body with that diet.
So the pendulum couldn't have swung to a bigger extreme. It's like all
Right.
sugar and processed to just straight up vegan.
Yeah, and no junk food vegan at all. It was really, really clean. And it worked great, and that worked great for me for a long time. And that's the same diet I used.
So all the symptoms started to...
All the symptoms
go
went
away?
away within a week or so. I haven't had a migraine headache since. Everything cleared up. So it was really miraculous.
Right.
And then in the last few years, my body started craving animal protein again. And it was really emotionally challenging for me because I had not only built my entire career on being a vegan expert and chef.
Right, so it's not just personal.
Yeah.
You were very public saying,
Yeah.
this is what I believe in.
Yeah. And I had never been a my way or the highway kind of person. I've always counseled people no matter what they eat. I love to, just help people feel better. And I've always said that vegan is my way, but it may not be your way. But it became so clear to me that my body was asking for something and I was denying it.
Okay, so here's the question though. you reach a point where you're vegan for a long time, you're feeling great, and then your body starts craving meat or something, it starts craving not being a vegan. Okay, I'm eating really clean for a long time. My body starts craving chocolate or sugar or others. How do I know, how do you know when it's a craving which is going to send you spiraling down into a bad place, or when it's a craving that's when your body is kind of sending you a signal that says, no, this is actually what I need and it's a good thing?
Yeah. I say you have to be open to experiment, and you have to be open to go down a path and find out that it's not the right one for you. So usually more sugar in your diet is not ultimately the right path, but you may have been really extremely avoiding all carbohydrates, and you may need some natural sugars in your diet for a small amount of time. And, for myself, I found that I wanted people's hamburgers. I wanted the steak that was on their plate.
So you're like, you gonna finish that?
Yeah. I was ordering tofu and ordering all those things and eating more sea vegetables, eating all the nutrient-rich food I could, because I thought it's just a lack of minerals. I just have to eat more superfoods. And I see and smell their food, and my body, it became an animal human.
So your first response, though, is let me just eat more of the super high nutrient dense stuff and see if that's what my body's telling me.
Yeah. Because I thought, no, this is the way for me. I've been vegan. I can't go back. I love animals. I don't want to eat them. This whole mental war, I was so tortured over it. So I finally allowed myself to have it. And experiment and see, is this what my body wants? Try it, see how I feel. And I did, and it felt really good. And it's been kind of a dance over the last few years, going totally vegan for weeks at a time, and then having some meat or fish or eggs, and then back and forth and all over the place, but really just continuing to listen to what my body's asking for.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the hardest things for anybody to do, whether it's food, whether it's exercise, whether it's work, whether it's taking breaks. I really feel like we become so tuned out to just paying attention to all the signals that our body gives us all day long about what it actually needs. It's like you're working, you just power through work, you never stop, and something goes into your body and it's just making you feel sick or tired. I think we don't make the connection between behavior and symptomology, and just sort of not even symptomology, but just what we feel, our body's visceral reaction to the way we exist in the world. I think it seems like we're so disconnected that we can't even hear that or see it anymore.
Absolutely. So a lot of what I do with people is just talking and helping them see, what is your life set up like, and what is your body telling you it wants, and learning to decipher it. It's like a code or another language that we have no knowledge of. And it could be any nutritional deficiency, or a physical or an emotional deficiency in your life that's causing that desire, that craving for sugar or for meat. And none of them are wrong. Whatever you're feeling is not bad. You're not a bad person for wanting sugar or meat or whatever it is. It's just information that something's out of balance.
I was talking not long ago to Lissa Rankin, who's a doctor, but very much sort of a holistic approach to medicine. And she said she started asking her patients, what does your body need to heal itself, or some variation of that?
Yeah.
And people would just burst into tears on a regular basis, because it was the first time somebody sort of in a perceived position of authority in the medical field asked them anything like that. And they were asking them, she was essentially saying, you already know, but okay, close your eyes and listen, and and now share it. And I think that's so rare that people have conversations around that on any level.
Absolutely, and that's mirrored perfectly in my own health journey. The first doctor I went to, who was going to give me pain medication and Prozac, I was in his office for 5 minutes, and he was ready to give me major prescriptions. And the next doctor who asked me what I was eating, that was an hour-long conversation. So it really does just require some time. It's like your conversations with people in this Good Life project. It's really giving it some space and being curious.
Yeah, room to breathe.
Yeah.
I love that you brought up being curious also. One of the things that, having done a lot of these great conversations with really amazing people for a little while now, one of the commonalities that I've seen with a lot of people, and I see it with you also, who've gone out and done some really incredible things in the world and in their own lives very often, is this intense curiosity about the world, about people, which kind of brings me to another question that I've had for you about a while, which is your why. Like, you know, like what really drives you? What really makes you want to wake up and say, this is what I'm here to do? Like, what is it?
You know, I feel like I don't even have an answer. Like, there's not one specific thing that I've ever wanted to create in my life, but it's just a constant unfolding of like, oh, excitement, or oh, connection. And I was so lucky to have parents who were teachers. They were both teachers, and my mom's an artist, and it's just a constant discovery. Like, life is this big playground, and there's not one ride I want to go on. I want to try everything, you know? I think my only why is, or the big what that I'm looking for is how, you know, what's going on in my immediate environment, and how can I take part in it? How can I be involved in what's going on? I mean, I love those old classic movies where they're like, hey kids, let's put on a show. Like, oh, that sounds like fun to me. I want my whole life to be like that. Let's go do something together.
Right. No, I love that. It's like you're living the little rascals.
Exactly. But I was also raised by teachers who were very good citizens, and they were always in the community and always involved in a project. And that kind of getting involved is so rewarding, and it feels great to share that.
So I'd love to sort of fill out what you're doing these days. A piece of it is, share with me, like, because you experiment and you do a lot of different things right now. Give me a little bit of a picture of sort of like, you know, where you place your energies professionally these days.
So I write, I have a blog, and I talk a lot about our inner war with food, our relationship with food, and, you know, I love sharing recipes that I find really easy and exciting. I get really excited about a new ingredient or a new way to make something.
What's your favorite ingredient right now?
I love almond flour.
It's really good.
It's
I know.
really
I've
cool.
recently discovered it too.
It's really cool. You can bread stuff in it. You can make sweets out of it. So I do a lot of writing, and I've written a few books, and I have several ideas for next books that I'm whittling down. And then I do a lot of group programs where I help people through this process of clearing away those foods that are damaging their bodies and keeping them stuck in their life. You know, just clear that stuff away, help them see their habits and their patterns, transform them so that they can really start to have some clarity and get some energy going so they can have great lives.
Yeah.
And I speak, I go to colleges, I speak at health expos, and I do some TV, talk about different products and talk about different programs and way to lose weight and how to eat for this health issue. So all kinds of different things.
Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like there's this common thread that kind of weaves through everything with you, which is the thread of experimentation.
Yeah.
And so always like, okay, what can I try? How can I keep this interesting? How will this feel and work for me and for the people I'm trying to reach out to?
Yeah, it's fun. I don't think, you know, life is so organic and life is constantly evolving. And, you know, not only was my mom an artist, but my aunts and uncles were musicians, and there's a lot of creation at home. And it was always about trying something new, picking up a new instrument and playing with that, or going out and planting a new seed that we hadn't tried last year. Let's try something different. And, you know, just feeling safe to try something, whether or not it works out. And if you like it, great. If not, try the next thing.
Yeah. Which is a great lesson also. I think, you know, we're both parents. We're both entrepreneurs. We both spend a lot of time working out of the house where like the kids can see what we do.
Yeah.
And do you ever talk to your son? Because like, he sees so much of what you do. He's involved in so much of it. Does he ever get curious about sort of like what mommy does and like how you try different things and or you know, like the fact that some stuff works and some stuff doesn't work? Because I think it's so important, so valuable for kids to see that you can fail,
Yeah.
that you can try and then you can fail, and then it's okay. And it's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's not good to always fail, but that, you know, you can, on the road to a number of successes and learning, that's part of the learning process and growth process.
Right, absolutely. No, it's so funny. My son, he's always in the kitchen with me. You know, this morning he was up on the counter stirring the oatmeal for me, and I told him I was going to be cooking later today, making scones, and he was kind of bummed he wasn't going to be involved in it. And I swear, sometimes he thinks that most of my job is posting pictures of food on Facebook because I'm constantly taking pictures of our dinner. And he's like, "Are you going to put that on Facebook?" Yeah, I am.
No, it's only half of my job, not the whole job.
It's so strange to me that this kid is growing up with Facebook as a presence in his life.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other conversation.
I know, but it's amazing because, you know, that's part of it. My daughter's the same way also because I'm very active online. It's just, so she's aware of all these different communities that I engage in on a regular basis,
Yeah.
which on the one hand is great, which on the other hand freaks me out because, you know, she's my kid.
Right. Yeah, I have this intense desire to protect him and push him to try new things
Right.
that may be scary. So there's a bit of a dichotomy there. But I've taught cooking classes to every school he's ever been in. And that was the other thing. He thinks I post on Facebook, and he thinks I make green smoothies. Those are the two jobs that he sees me do most frequently. Serving green smoothies to kids.
Okay. Look, if you can make a living doing that.
I wish I could.
That's pretty funny. No, I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's great, I think, to be so involved and also, and to just show that you can try things and it works out sometimes and it doesn't work out. But that it's all okay, and that's actually an important thing because no matter what we say, you know, kids model what we do.
They do. And, you know, my own parents, I'm sure, had some hesitation when I left home because I left home, I went to college, and then I moved every year for years and was trying new careers. But I always felt fine about it. There wasn't any fear for moving across the country and trying a new job. And I'm so grateful that they gave me the foundation to do that.
No.
And I think what I love about what I do now is that it has all these different parts to it. It's never the same. And there's so many different ways to be creative and to do this work that I love. So I'm never going to get bored, which is great.
Right. So what's interesting though is that you and I have very similar mindsets in that way. You know, like I like a lot of fluidity. Yeah. I like to experiment. I like to try things. But there will be a lot of people watching this conversation, especially a little bit further into life, maybe parents, you know, with responsibilities in life, who are saying to themselves, no. You know, we want the linear life. We want a plan. We want security. We want to know what's coming next. And there should be a path. And because I think a lot of people are terrified about not having a very clear, like, I'm going to this point, like, here's where I am now, and this is a point that I'm going to, and I'm going to reverse engineer the steps to get there, and I'm just going to follow the steps until I get there. And a sort of a fluid approach to life, which says, you know what? I have a pretty good sense for what jazzes me and what doesn't jazz me. What doesn't jazz me? Yeah, is that right? And I know all the qualities of the things that make me come alive. And that can manifest itself in 100 different ways. And if they present themselves to me, then I'll explore it. Yeah. It freaks so many people out because it's not guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed, but it seems like it's just so random, but it's really not.
It's not random. And I always felt so grateful for the certain life skills that I was taught growing up. And there's a whole variety of them. And learning to cook was one of them, you know, a basic life skill where I feel like anywhere I go, I'm not going to starve. Like, I have my basic needs covered for life. So if you feel that kind of ability in yourself, you can just go and do whatever it is that gets you excited. And I do like the idea of looking forward and saying, yeah, I want to create this thing, and it might look like that, and using that as a starting point. But who knows what's going to happen once you step out the door.
Well, I think that's the key, is being open to, you know, it's okay to have a plan, but I think it's also really important to be open to serendipity.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. You know, your plan could take you from point A to B, but had you been open to other things that kind of fall into the path from A to B, instead of just going linearly with your blinders on, you maybe could have gone, instead of from A to B, from A to, you know, like Z or M or N, or some place where, you know, it's profoundly better or more impactful or more enjoyable. But you cut off the opportunity to go there if you don't allow yourself to see the things that, you know, that are unforeseeable before you actually start along the journey.
Yeah, I mean, Supersize Me never would have happened if I had gone into advertising like I thought I was going to after college. You know, I never would have done any of these things, written 3 books or created all these fun projects if I had stuck with the plan I had when I was 18.
Yeah. Which is why I think there's an awakening to this. Maybe it's just the world that I live in, that you live in. It seems to me that there's an increasing awakening to the understanding that life is short, and, you know, being present and being engaged and meaning matters. Money matters too. You know, we're parents, you got to put food on the table. We'd never say it doesn't matter, but meaning really matters also.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's got to be fun.
That too. I like fun.
Yeah. And
scones. Scones are very important.
Scones are great.
Yeah.
And they pack well.
Which I like, because I'm always on the road.
Right.
So the name of this project is Good Life Project. So when I offer that phrase out to you, what does it mean to you to live a good life? What comes to mind?
A good life for me is one where I feel well. You know, I feel good in my body, and I've got my friends and my family around, and we can play and create and do things and go places that we want to go. It means being able to live wherever I want and still being able to see my family whenever I need to and whenever I want to go see them. And it means offering people my experience. You know, being a guide for whoever is interested in finding their way to wellness. I really just see a lot of needless disease and pain in people's bodies. And if I can help them feel better, awesome. And if we can have a good time while we're doing it, even better. So that's it. It's so simple. It's not complicated. My life isn't that, I don't know, it's exciting to me. I love what's going on, but it's not a huge, glamorous existence.
Thank you so much for that. Really meaningful. I appreciate it. So my guest today has been Alex Jamieson. I'm Jonathan Fields, signing off for Good Life Project.